today.
This meeting is now called to order. Welcome, everyone. Adoption of minutes.
Be it resolved that the minutes of the meeting held on July 26, 2022 be adopted.
Someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Mennel and Councillor Ketchapaw. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? None. There are no presenting petitions, presentations, or delegations this morning. Committee of the Whole.
Be it resolved that we do now move into Committee of the Whole.
Moved by Councillor Jones and seconded by Deputy Warden Marks. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Into reports of council outside boards and staff. Item, organizational culture initiative. And the resolution, please.
Be it resolved that HR Policy 2.80 and 2.80.1, Civility and Respect, Policy and Procedures Against Harassment and Discrimination be approved as drafted by the County Management Team, and that previously approved HR Policies 2.80, Workplace Harassment and Discrimination Policy and Procedure, and 2.80.1, Commitment to Civil Workplace Environment and Workplace Interactions, and associated appendices 2.80A and 2.80B be replaced in entirety, following an internal legal review of the new and amended policies, and that the report titled Organizational Culture Initiative, Update and Draft HR Policy, dated August 9th, 2022, from the Director of Human Resources be received and filed.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second, please. Councillor Martin and seconded by Councillor Giguere, and I'll turn it over to you, Amy. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Warden, and through you to members of council. In follow-up to prior presentations to council, I'm bringing forward this policy and procedure on behalf of management team members across the organization who were involved in the redevelopment of our workplace harassment, discrimination, and civility policies and procedures. One lever to organizational culture change is the systems, namely HR policies in this case, that support the values, behaviors, and attitudes we want to reinforce. The policy before council today is one of those systems which we hope will act as a tool for management and staff to understand the expectations of the organization and to help them work through inevitable workplace conflicts as they arise. Another lever to organizational culture change is leadership styles and behaviors that we exhibit in the workplace. This is why the entire team was engaged in this collaborative process with hopes that the output will be more user-friendly and gain buy-in, more buy-in than strictly HR or legislative approach would have created. Leadership must set the example when it comes to acceptable workplace values, attitudes, and behaviors before we can expect the same from staff across the organization. The current program is rooted in respect. Amended policy and procedures were designed to meet the legislative requirements under the Occupational Health and Safety Act and the Ontario Human Rights Code, but will undergo an internal legal review to ensure they remain compliant in this area of evolving legislation. The documents were created by a smaller, focused group of 8 leaders who volunteered to work with Sarah Luther and her team to take the information from the 4 broader leadership team sessions and integrate into a new and improved policy and process. We're especially proud of the purpose statement that this group developed, which leads into the civility and respect policy, utilizing input from the broader management team collaboration. This statement is purposely aspirational in nature and speaks to the type of organization that we all agreed we want to work for and to work toward. The policy will continue to require review and approval by the Joint Health and Safety Committee and Council annually, and that's per the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Next steps will include internal legal review to ensure all legislative requirements continue to be met, further work within the management team prior to broader rollout and provision of training across the organization, development of supplementary training and tools that support management and staff in ensuring civil, respectful, and healthy work environment, as well as the development of corporate values with a tie-in to performance management processes and other related policies, procedures, and corporate systems. And while we don't expect these initiatives to have an immediate measurable impact, but we should see certain metrics change over time. So for example, we do compile and present metrics at budget time annually from an HR perspective, and these look to number of positions filled, which would tie back to turnover rates. So we're measuring things like turnover, retention, and satisfaction. We did a satisfaction survey in 2020, early in 2020, so just prior to the pandemic, actually. And we will redo this soon. We don't want to do a satisfaction survey during a very tumultuous time, which a pandemic would include. And you might even see turnover, something like turnover increase when you're trying to make these changes, as some staff might not feel a fit with the culture that we want, and they might exit the corporation for various reasons. We also collect exit interview feedback and look to measure any consistent feedback there, things that we can do to improve the employee experience. We look at the number of grievances as well as harassment and incivility, either investigations or complaint processes that we deal with annually. We would hope that over time these will come down when we have this kind of work developed and everybody on board. And these are very time-consuming processes, so that's another improvement we hope to see over time. And the overall outcome that we're looking for is improved staff health and wellness, which can be measured by attendance rates and as well as LOA metrics. So looking for things like our long-term disability claims to drop over the long term, which are very costly claims to the corporation. And as well as benefit plan usage statistics we can look at as well, and if we hopefully see improvements there from an employee health perspective. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions council might have.
Thank you, Amy. Are there any questions for Amy? Councillor Shakir?
Thank you, Madam Warden. Just a comment to say this is great work. I know it's not easy. I really like the approach of engaging staff and developing the policies together. So I think this is well on its way, and I think keeping track of the metrics that you mentioned will be good indicators to see that this is making an impact. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any further comments or questions for Amy? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And thank you, Amy. Up is December 2022 council meeting date change.
Be it resolved that the report titled December 2022 Council Meeting Date Change, dated August 3rd, 2022, from the Manager of Administrative Services be received and filed for information, and that Elgin County Council consent to a change in the council meeting schedule for the second meeting in December from December 8th, 2022 to December 7th, 2022 at 9 a.m. with public notice issued.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second, please. Councillor Mennel and seconded by Councillor Jones. Good morning, Jenna. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Through you to members of council. The purpose of this report is to seek council's consent to change the December 8th, 2022 council meeting to December 7th, 2022 at 9 a.m. Upon council's approval, public notice will be provided through our website and through our social media platforms.
Okay, thank you, Jenna. Are there any questions for Jenna? Seeing none, all those in favor? Or did you have a question?
I'm going to ask the obvious question.
Okay.
Why?
Okay.
Through you, Madam Warden, to members of council, we did receive a request from a member of council who is running for the next term of council. And there is nothing in our procedural bylaw that would prohibit a change in schedule for the upcoming council term. So with plenty of notice, administration did not feel there was an issue with this change in schedule.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's, thank you. Thank you, Jenna. The next item up is traffic study, Village of Port Stanley.
Be it resolved that the report titled Traffic Study Village of Port Stanley dated August 3rd, 2022, from the General Manager of Engineering, Planning and Enterprise and Deputy CAO be received and filed.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Counselor McPhail and seconded by Counselor Mennel. Good morning, Brian. I'll turn it over to you.
Morning, Madam Warren, through to council. This report is tabled before council as directed at your last meeting, whereby concerns were expressed by a member of council as it specifically relates to East Road and Carlow Road as it pertains to traffic speeds and concerns associated with traffic in that regard. In follow-up to that direction, county staff deployed all nine of our traffic counters throughout the village of Port Stanley, both in advance of and throughout the duration of the most recent long weekend, the results of which are detailed in the staff report for you. Also included is our various elements associated with traffic calming measures that could be deployed, if so directed by council. One of the measures noted or suggested was speed humps. County staff, along with all transportation practitioners across the province, typically will rely upon the Canadian Guide to Traffic Calming that's issued by the Transportation Association of Canada. The deployment or installation of speed humps is not recommended as it is not deemed effective on rural cross-section roads, which for East Road is the case that exists. Carlow Road, however, is an urbanized road. That said, both roads are deemed to carry a large volume of traffic, and again, in accordance with the guidance document, aren't suggested to have speed humps deployed either. Second suggestion was the possibility of deploying centerline bollards. If for those members of council that may have driven through the village during the King George Rehabilitation Bridge, you would have likely seen those centerline bollards installed. Those are traffic calming measures that are deemed temporary, not deemed permanent, and accordingly, in accordance with the guideline, aren't recommended for a permanent installation either. In terms of the traffic count data that was received, for the most part, the traffic values, both 85th percentile and average speeds are noted in the appended map, are within an expected range. There certainly are one or two sections identified there that are higher than we would have liked. However, speed enforcement is something that the county is not responsible for, and have connected with our local OPP detachment and have forwarded the data to their office for follow-up as well. And the last thing I would note is East Road between Dexter Line and Sunset Road. If council will recall, there was a report tabled before you earlier this year in which council directed staff to bring back a report about consideration about reducing the posted speed that existed there. What exists there now is a posted speed of 50, whereas prior to that, there was a posted speed of 80. And it was at that time, county staff recommended that it not be reduced, and based on the results we're seeing here today, it's consistent with what statistical data and guidance from TAC manual would suggest, that given the rural cross-section that exists and limited homes within that section, a significant drop in speed wasn't anticipated, and we're seeing that through the results here. Just wanted to note that. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Other questions? Go ahead, Deputy Warden.
Well, I'd like to first thank staff for the report, very thorough. And only asked last meeting, so I appreciate the speed with it come back. I put a lot of thought into this, read that report many times. Part that Mayor Martin probably would agree with me, it's been a recurring theme for the last 3.5, almost 4 years. We constantly get complaints about speed. I think the fact that we're not with your counters, it sort of proves that when Port Stanley is busy, it's clogged. There's no speeding then. It's just bumper to bumper traffic. But a day like yesterday, when maybe it rained and, it wasn't busy, the speeders are out. And we cannot have enforcement there all the time. It certainly helps, but that means you're taking enforcement off other parts of the county, which, they speed on my road and my neighbor's road as well, and they never get anything. The speed humps, I think I'm fairly familiar. I walk my daughter's dog a lot over in Summerside. And the road there, it's 3, 4, 5 miles long. They've got them all along. And the only thing I know about them, everyone hates them, but they actually work. People, you actually have to kind of aim, so you're straddling them. And it's, it slows traffic down. And I'm not an expert, and I appreciate staff's expertise, but after 4 years, the traffic is still speeding. If we just file this report, the traffic are still going to be speeding down there, and that bothers me. And the bollards on, they worked. I don't know how many people said, like, why did you take them down? Because you get around past the arena, and when there's not a clog of traffic, people just roar up through there. And that's a constant message we get from our residents. I guess you never know if you don't try. What I'd like to see us do is maybe a trial project, put the speed humps in, not the bumps, see if they slow traffic down. I don't think we're going to get any complaints from, well, the speeders will probably complain, but the speeders will be slowed down. I don't know if there's any support on this council for a trial project, but I'd certainly entertain one.
Questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Ketchba, and then Councillor Martin.
Yeah, thank you. It's a question more for Deputy Warden Marks. As a trial project, what area are you thinking about, and where, and what, you suggested a speed bump or a hump on the road, but what's the most offensive road down in Port Stanley?
I would say East Road at the present, and I think a very simple solution, put the bollards back up on, is it Colburn? Carlo or whatever. I don't get lost in Port Stanley. I don't know the roads very well. But East Road, it's just a constant. Whenever I see someone down there, they're always telling me it's dangerous sometimes. And I think Port Stanley, it's just a couple of miles away, and I hope everyone sort of knows the area. I can understand our county roads, whether you're going through Shedden or Springfield or wherever. We get clusters of houses, and they're always complaining that people are speeding by. We know that. This is a bit different. We've got a lot of subdivisions. It's almost built out, and it's certainly going to be built out soon. There's a lot of traffic down there, and a lot of people are walking, et cetera, et cetera. I'll leave it at that.
Go ahead, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, just to comment on the East Road one too, we had originally, with these subdivisions, we had originally intended to put a sidewalk from the subdivisions to Little Creek Park, which is the community park in that area. And then you'll probably recall, it came to county council about, because we left that a rural cross-section, East Road is a rural cross-section, so it was going to have to be a built-up thing on the edge of the road because of the big ditches and how we were going to do that. And we found that the costs were just beyond us. So we haven't been able to do that this year. It's in the budget for next year, but even though we had originally intended to do it this year. So there are a lot of people that are walking down the side of that street. And I will say, when I've been driving East Road, I would say the traffic has slowed down. And even though it doesn't seem to indicate that further north, I don't find people going anywhere near as fast as they were before. And they're slowing down sooner because it used to start at Dexter Line, the slowdown. And now they're down to
close to 50 by Dexter line. Whereas before, you were lucky if by Extendicare they were down to 50. So the other one that did throw me there, just one comment, was the, excuse me. I've had a dry cough here for a bit. The Dexter line, where you've got it that they're up to 94 at the 85th percentile, that's 60 up till a few, meters or 100 meters from where you've got that dot, because that's 60 right through to down to the bottom of the ravine. So I'm just sort of shocked by, I know it's posted 80 there, but it was 60 till very close to there. So they certainly are letting loose at that point. But I agree with, I wouldn't mind seeing something done, thank you, Jenna, on East Road as well. So, if it was temporary, I travel lots of streets that have the humps, not the bumps, that you have to sort of straddle or go slowly to hit, and they seem to work extremely well. But I know East Road you've talked about on that other report a while ago that you might download it to Central Elgin too, so I don't know what to say, but I am concerned with, it has improved. The change in speed limit has improved it, definitely from Dexter line south. So I'm not certain where we want to try that, but I do know Carlo Road, Deputy Mayor Marks is correct. Once they get past the school and around that corner, they just roar down the rest of the way because that isn't built up. And the bollards did make a big difference because they reminded you constantly it was 50. So anyway, just those are my comments.
Are there any further comments? Go ahead, Councillor McPhail.
A question to Brian. The speed humps, do they stay there year round, and do we have to hump a snowplow over it, or how does that work?
Yeah, so there's through to council. There's certainly both a temporary option that exists out there and then more of a permanent option. The permanent option is certainly far more expensive than the temporary option and does present operational challenges in the winter months. There's no doubt about it. I guess at the request of council, we're happy to deploy whatever direction council provides.
Go ahead, Councillor
I
Martin.
was going to say the temporary ones are, from what I understand, are much better in the sense that you can remove them for the winter. And so because the roads, there isn't as much speeding often in the winter because there isn't the volume of traffic in the winter that there is the rest. But I certainly wouldn't like to see permanent ones because it would make it very difficult to keep the roads clean.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Deputy.
It may be difficult, but it's like I said, I have my daughters, like they plow that road, it's the main avenue, so it's not impossible to plow them. So if there's any appetite here, I'd even make a motion that we try a trial project, if there's any appetite for it.
I think there are a lot of questions that may arise about the costs associated with the pilot, the duration of the pilot, winter maintenance has come up. So I would recommend to council that a follow-up report be delivered by the General Manager of Engineering, Planning and Enterprise at the September meeting with all of those outstanding details for council's consideration.
And Councillor Jiguer, go ahead.
I can go. Thank you, Madam Warden. I agree with a follow-up report. I would like to include some recommendations around pavement markings. I recall at Good Roads this year, there were several presentations about traffic calming studies and what works in the long run and what doesn't. And I was quite intrigued by a few studies that seemed to show long-term positive effects with markings that create a narrowing, which create a bit of discomfort because it feels like the road is narrower, which is, I think, is what the ballards are creating. But with pavement markings, obviously, lesser cost and maintenance or operational issues. So if we're going to explore this further, I think it's worthwhile, but I'd like to include the markings as well as a potential solution that we could pilot.
Okay, go ahead, Brian.
Through Madam Warren to Councillor Jiguer, the staff report does actually provide information in that regard, and quite frankly, staff are of the recommendation that sort of the first step would be line painting, less invasive approach, and then, you know, there could be a stepped approach with respect to traffic calming, but we can include that as part of a future report.
Councillor Jones, did you have a question or comment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Warden. I guess I agree with the follow-up report, but, you know, reality is, I think the report says about 36 other areas in the county that could deal with the same thing. I think if Central Elgin is dead set on this, then Central Elgin should be paying for it, personally.
Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Just one question. I don't know that Central Elgin can install things on county roads without county's permission.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Well, yeah, I would fully agree that, yeah, it should be with county's blessing, but if county does decide to bless this, that Central Elgin should pay for it.
Did you have a further comment, Brian? Any further comments? So, go ahead, Councillor.
So where do we stand right now? Is there a motion on the floor to request a?
No, it's receive and file, Councillor McPhail, but that would be our next step.
Next step, if there's a motion on.
To talk to our CAO and see how we can get that. I think people are saying that we'd like to see another report.
Exactly.
September.
I'm just.
I was just gonna ask Julie, how we've got this on the floor, so can we just add a couple of words to it, and if council's okay, or do we need to go through the whole procedure?
With the consent of Councillor McPhail and Councillor Mennel, we can amend the motion on the floor to include the original proposed motion, which was to receive and file the report with the amendment that staff be directed to prepare a follow-up report to County Council on September 13th, detailing costs and maintenance considerations associated with a pilot project, including traffic calming measures on East Road in Port Stanley.
Is that okay?
I'm good.
And Julie, is that September 14th?
14th?
Is that the Wednesday?
14th, sorry, Mayor.
If there are no further questions or comments and we're all okay with this, all those in favor? That's carried, thank you. The next item is corporate asset management plan.
It resolved that the report titled Corporate Asset Management Plan dated August 3rd, 2022 from the General Manager of Engineering, Planning and Enterprise and Deputy CAO be received and filed, and that the Corporate Asset Management Plan be endorsed for submission to the Ministry of Infrastructure Ontario, and that staff be directed to proceed with the plan as outlined in support of future budget developments.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second, please. Councillor Martin and Councillor Jiguer, and I'll turn it over to you, Brian.
Thank you, Madam Warren, through you to council. First, I'd like to acknowledge all staff within EP as well as the various other county service departments for which data has been provided. This truly was a team effort. It's been a long 2 years to get to this point, but I'm so pleased of the collaboration that's come together in preparing this report and presenting it before council. In accordance with Ontario Regulation 588-17, all municipalities are required to prepare council-endorsed strategic asset management plans, and that regulation details the deadlines for various submissions to the ministry, which includes the report presented here before you today. In summary, the county has identified a series of core assets focus in stormwater, sanitary, transportation, fleet, and long-term care homes, as well as corporate facilities, which all of which those services depend on approximately assets valued at $1.38 billion. The asset management plan, an asset management plan was first prepared by the county in 2014, was updated in 2019, which focused on solely just transportation assets. And again, this most recent evolution of that asset management plan presented to you today includes a series of core assets owned and maintained by the county. Future evolutions of the report to be presented at a future council will include other county services such as IT, a further evaluation of long-term care homes, etc. The corporate asset management plan before you outlines current and asset management planning. It identifies the current practices and strategies that are in place to manage the public infrastructure and makes recommendations where they are to be further refined. It includes levels of service for each area of discipline. In summary, once again, $1.3 billion of core infrastructure assets were identified, 96.5% of which all analyzed and deemed to be in good or better condition. The development of the long-term sustainable financial plan requires an analysis of whole life cycle costs. The corporate asset management plan has used a combination of proactive life cycle strategies to combine asset replacement where possible to determine the lowest cost option to maintain the current level of service. This plan, as noted by the recommendation, does support the 10-year capital plan and will require annual updates of the plan in order to continue to do so. With that, Madam Warden, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Martin.
Yes, I think this is great. We've certainly done excellent ones now in Central Elgin on all our facilities, and it made budget time so easy because it fit in with the asset management. And as you note in here, I mean, in order to get grants, you have to have your asset management plans in place. And I think that's very important. So I just had one question. I'd forgotten that we did wastewater at Elgin Manor, and it reminded me that is how it's done. I'm assuming Beaubier Villa and Elmer, or Terrace Lodge are done by the communities of Dunwich, Dutton, and Elmer.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. And I commend you on this. It's an excellent report. And, oh, one other thing. Roads, and it was to do with the concept that you had brought forward, that there may be some roads you're considering downloading to local municipalities. Is that incorporated in here at all?
No,
I didn't think so.
Current state.
Thank you.
Okay, further questions? Go ahead, Councillor Purcell.
Yeah, if I could ask, I think it would be helpful if we could extract the long-term care section and add it as an appendix to our presentation to the ministry. Please.
Further comments, questions? Head Councillor Ketchpaw.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I agree it is a very well-developed plan. It's a sobering plan because it does identify the funding gaps that we currently are challenged to meet. And just as a confirmation question, and I'll put this to staff, I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Should the county divest itself of certain assets, then that changes the plan and narrows that funding gap as well, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you for that. And it is an interesting, reading through the plan, Madam Warden, again, I'm amazed at the things that I learned about the county. I had no idea that we maintain a fleet of tractors at the long care homes. And it is something that I'm going to be bringing up around budget time, trying to scratch my head and thinking, if we have contractors looking after this stuff, why are we maintaining this fleet? But that's for a future conversation.
I'm going to say something. I can't agree with you more, Councillor Ketchpaw. To be honest, I don't know how budgets were done before we've been actually delving into all these situations as you brought up. And so we're learning something new every day. So thanks to staff for really giving us the information that we require. It's much easier to do budgets. Are there any further questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Warden. And I would agree with Councillor Ketchpaw. It is a sobering stat, almost $4 billion in assets. That's a huge undertaking. And I know all about flying by the seat of your pants. In Southwold, when I first came on, it was day to day trying to figure out how we're going to spend and pay for things. asset management is the best things that ever came along to actually running the county like a business.
Just one comment, if I may, Madam Warden, just further to Brian's introductory comments, I'd like to commend the team for their efforts. Doing this type of report in-house did save the county a lot of consulting fees. And so I know that this report that is presented to you today is polished and professional, but it does represent a huge amount of work for Brian, his team, and other directors across the county. So congratulations for your efforts. And thanks for saving the county over $100,000.
Go ahead,
A
Councilor.
final comment to follow up on Julie's, comments there. It's often a great learning experience when you do these things yourself, and then you find out exactly where the nitty gritty is. You hire a contractor to do this stuff. Well, at the end of the day, you're still in the, very much in the dark or perhaps in the weeds because you haven't done the work yourself. You want to understand it, do it yourself. So I congratulate staff on undertaking this, and yes, and thank you very much for saving some corporate dollars there.
Are there any further comments or questions concerning this report? Seeing none? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item is Centennial Avenue and Elm Line Roundabout revised landscaping options.
It resolved that the report titled Centennial Ave and Elm Line Roundabout Revised Landscaping Options dated August 3rd, 2022 from the General Manager of Engineering, Planning and Enterprise and Deputy CAO be received and filed, and that council provide direction with respect to its preferred landscaping option.
Should we leave this? Well, so we've got it here, so you know what it is, but we've got to pick the option. So before we actually get a mover and someone to second, we'll have the discussion. So I'll turn it over to Brian, and then we can figure out which option we're going to choose.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Through to council. As directed by council at its last meeting, staff have brought back two options, one of which was a hybrid. So the first option, to recap, and as noted in the staff report, is what we are referring to as a naturalized habitat. It will involve restoration of the roundabout to include a naturalized seed mix, a flowering seed mix. So a wild prairie grass, something to that effect. I loosely liken it to what's beside the county administration building, just to give you a sense of what that may look like when it's said and done. Option two, and the costs are noted there and detailed there before you. In terms of maintenance costs, there's really an option to create either a naturalized sod buffer adjacent to the curb or fill it with stone to achieve a low maintenance effect. The stone would be the recommendation in that regard. Option two is what we're referring to as the hybrid decorative gardening and native plants. It essentially will rely upon the county's native species planting guidelines that was recently endorsed by council as well as the environmental committee in order to incorporate naturalized plant species in that regard. In accordance with the project budget estimate detailed there, the capital cost to do so is in the range is approximately $107,000. That was the cost carried for in our capital project right now, carried by our consultant. There is recommendations with respect slight increased maintenance costs with respect to annual weeding and periodic mulch addition throughout its life cycle. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Go ahead, Councillor Martin.
Yes, it was sent out to the Environment Committee to ask for their opinions. I know of 3 that responded because they copied all. So I am aware that the 3 that responded all suggested that they thought option 1, the full naturalized area, was the best economically and environmentally as well. So, and with the stone buffer, which they they thought really lowered the maintenance, so that, that was what the three that I saw responded.
Do we have the actual, I know someone was in charge, I believe it was Catherine, was
Yes.
tallying up the votes from, and I believe everyone voted that way. Some didn't do.
No, I just saw a reply to all
But I
of the
believe
ones.
from what I could see that all the people that were polled on this particular item all went with the first option. So that, just so that council's aware. Go ahead, Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Warden. And yeah, another thought came to mind. We can always start with option one, and down the road, if we feel that it's not working out, we can always move back to option two quite quickly and without a significant amount of money to do so, I would believe.
Councilor Ketchapa?
Yes, to clarify, and I think I'm hearing this, that the preferred option that's being discussed then is the naturalized hydro seed, but rather than a grass barrier around it, stone, because that makes a lot more sense to me. You're going to have some of these people with larger equipment or trucks or whatever else are going to hop the curb, and rather than rutting out your grass, might as well have a foundation there in which to minimize damage. But it also, if it'll minimize your annual maintenance costs, I agree with that, you know.
Councilor Marsh?
One thing, it said in here that there hadn't been one in, and yet I thought you showed us the one in Langley, BC as our sample previously, that they had done a roundabout like that in Langley, because the previous report, not this one, but had labeled it Langley, and I like the idea of the educational signs. I think that's very important for people to understand.
Sorry, reference should have been Ontario, not Canada. My
Okay, thank you.
Any further comments about this report? Go ahead, Councilor McPhail.
What's the cost of hydroseeding with grass and having someone come in every couple of weeks and plant and cut the grass?
Through you, Madam Warden, we didn't obtain a formal cost estimate to cut grass there. The minimal buffer would be added to our annual grass cutting maintenance contract. I suspect, any sort of valuation that I provide would be an estimate, but we would have to formally seek a quotation from our contractor to do so.
I'm just wondering if it was an option, as I'm thinking driving around, especially through the Kitchener-Waterloo area where there are a lot of roundabouts. I don't recall any of them done up elaborately like we're proposing here. If that's necessary to do that, that's fine, but it does look like it's a fairly expensive addition that we're getting in the parks business. I guess we're getting into the parks business.
Any further comments? Okay, I don't see any hands up. I guess we're ready to vote then. All those in favor?
Well, we need to choose the option.
Oh, sorry. I thought it almost sounds like we know the option, sorry. So it's option one before we vote, and I would probably have Julie read that just to verify that.
Be it resolved that the report titled Centennial Ave and Elm Line Roundabout Revised Landscaping Options dated August 3rd, 2022, from the General Manager of Engineering, Planning and Enterprise and Deputy CAO be received and filed, and that council directs staff to proceed with option one, naturalized habitat for the roundabout at Centennial Ave and Elm Line with an estimated capital cost of $55,000 and estimated annual maintenance costs of $12,000.
Thank you, Julie. Now, all those in favor?
No.
No, we have to vote. I guess, sorry, I'm sorry. It's, Councillor Mennel is moving it. Now, someone to second, Councillor Jones. Any further questions or comments on this particular item?
Just a clarification, are we talking about a sod buffer or a stone buffer?
Stone is 1,000.
Stone is $1,000.
Stone is 1,000 annual maintenance. That's what I was considering too.
Any further changes? Is anybody, is everyone okay with this, I guess?
That makes more sense, yeah.
Sure. So
It's a little dollars.
no, we kind of changed it.
As long as Mennel and Jones are okay with $1,000 accounting
Okay.
for the stone buffer.
All right. Now we'll vote without any further questions or comments. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, the next item is appointment of deputy clerk and deputy clerk's alternate. Sure.
Be it resolved that the report titled Appointment of Deputy Clerk and Deputy Clerk's Alternate and the Appointment of Treasurer and Deputy Treasurer dated July 28th, 2022 from the Chief Administrative Officer be received and filed, and that County Council approve and authorize bylaw 22-37 being a bylaw to appoint deputy clerk and deputy clerk's alternate for the Corporation of the County of Elgin and to repeal bylaw number 21-43, and that County Council approve and authorize bylaw 22-38 being a bylaw to appoint a treasurer and deputy treasurer for the Corporation of the County of Elgin and to repeal bylaw number 21-44.
Someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Purcell and seconded by Councillor Ketchapah. Julie, I'll turn it over to you, please.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Through you to members of council, this is a housekeeping report presented to council as a result of some organizational changes, including the maternity leave of the current deputy clerk. These bylaws need to be updated to ensure the statutory functions are fulfilled. Previous appointment bylaws did name specific individuals to fill these statutory roles. However, it is recommended to council that moving forward, these statutory roles be tied to specific job titles in the organization, ensuring continuity of operations regardless of the individuals who fill these positions. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Julie? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item is council correspondence. So items for consideration, none, but items for information. So we believe there are 4 items, and it was noted that on the 7.2.4 Elgin County Long-Term Care Homes Job Fair poster, the date for the Dutton Job Fair changed from September 8th to September the 15th, just so council's aware of that. All right.
Be it resolved that correspondence items 7.2.1 to 7.2.4 be received and filed.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Martin, and seconded by Councillor Jones. And are there questions, comments concerning these correspondence items? Go ahead.
Just one question is usually Elgin County have met in the spring or late, early summer, late, June with the Thames Valley Board. There's usually been a joint meeting. And I was curious that there was not a joint meeting this year.
Did have a joint meeting earlier in the spring. I would say in advance of the cyber attack, there was a joint meeting with the school board held.
In London, but not, like, we didn't have one with the, virtual, with the Catholic School Board as well?
Can't recall if I think it was just Thames Valley, Elgin County Council and our local municipal partners were invited to attend that joint meeting.
Okay, because we've normally had one with the Catholic School Board and the Public School Board and ourselves in our council chambers. And I was just curious that that had not occurred.
Go ahead, Councillor Purcell.
With regard to the job fair posters, it's all over social media right now. I would encourage every member of council to share that, because the more spread we can get, the better that will be.
Any further comments about the correspondence items?
If I may, Madam Warden, through you to members of council, I'd like to talk a little bit about the ASIP, or the Accelerated High-Speed Internet Program announcement. So this Government of Ontario initiative will involve partnerships with each of our local municipal partners to ensure successful implementation and delivery of the province's goal to provide access to high-speed internet to every region of Ontario by 2025. So this is an exciting announcement, which is a great step forward for our community in terms of connectivity and the work of the Connectivity Committee. So ExploreNet has been announced as the successful proponent for Elgin County. And this, we hope, will result in an investment in our community of approximately $66 million, which will serve 4,800 underserved dwellings and more than 1 million meters of underserved kilometers. Infrastructure Ontario will work closely with the Ministry of Infrastructure to oversee and administer the program. Infrastructure Ontario will then work with all municipalities and other key stakeholders to enable connectivity in an accelerated way. So we are required to participate and enroll in what they're calling the Broadband One Window platform, which will ensure that information is shared quickly and they're able to resolve any roadblocks as they come up. And we are obligated to enroll in the Broadband One Window by August 19th. So we'll ensure that we get that done. There are webinars that are scheduled to be held where we hope to gather more information. Those will be held on August 25th and August 29th. And we hope to provide an update to the Connectivity Committee on August 24th. We'll also connect with our local municipal partners as new information comes in to ensure that we at the county are able to support and help coordinate the work that is required to advance this work within our community. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Julie? Okay. Thank you, Julie. Councillor McPhail?
There's no information yet through ExploreNet or through the provincial government what type of process they're going to be using. My understanding is ExploreNet is more a wireless communication company and not so much fiber, so no indication whether they're getting into the fiber business or is it all wireless that they're going to do.
Through you, Madam Warden, to members of council. So the RFP itself did indicate that it was Elgin, in order to serve Elgin, we required a combination of both fiber and wireless. So I've yet to receive any details about ExploreNet's plan, but right now operating under the assumption that they bid on the Elgin lot as detailed within the RFP, and so they will be meeting the requirements as detailed within the RFP.
The RFP was.
Oh.
We know what the RFP was?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Councillor Shakira.
Madam Warden, I just wanted to add, because that was an inquiry I received right away, because I think in this area, ExploreNet is typically known for satellite service, but in other communities, they've developed fiber and, tower combination hybrid. So they do provide the full gamut of services. They not typically in this area. So I'm not surprised in some ways that they would have been selected for this area. But we shouldn't jump to the conclusion that it will be primarily satellite. I think they're well positioned to do fiber as well.
Through you, Madam Warden, we did provide some details about the ASIP program when it was launched, but perhaps as a refresher, and we'll likely be compiling this information for the Connectivity Committee late August, so we'll present another report with more information both for council and for the community at your meeting on September 14th, and we'll have the Director of IT provide that report.
Okay, are there any further comments about the correspondence? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Other business, statements and inquiries by members? Notice of motion? Matters of urgency? Items?
Resolved that we do now proceed into closed meeting session in accordance with the Municipal Act to discuss the following matters under Municipal Act Section 239(2). In-camera item number 1, which is security of property. In-camera item number 2, which is an organizational update. And in-camera item number 3, which is a property matter.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Ketchapah and Councillor Jagger. All those in favor? And that's carried. And we'll now take a break.
Recharge.
Welcome back. Motion to rise and report.
Be it resolved that we do now rise and report.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Ketchapah and Councillor Manel. All those in favor? And that's carried.
Be it resolved that the confidential report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Counselor Martin and seconded by Counselor McPhail. All those in favor? And that's carried.
For closed session item number 2, be it resolved that staff proceed as directed.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Counselor Jones and Counselor Purcell. All those in favor? And that's carried.
And for closed session item number 3, which is a property matter, be it resolved that the report from staff be received.
Okay, moved by Counselor Jiguer and seconded by Deputy Warden Marks. All those in favor? And that's carried. Motion to adopt recommendations from the Committee of the Whole.
Be it resolved that we do now adopt recommendations from Committee of the Whole.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Counselor Jones and seconded by Counselor Mennel. All those in favor? And that's carried. Consideration of bylaws.
Be it a first, second, and third read of bylaw 22-37, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy clerk and deputy clerk's alternate for the corporation of the County of Elgin, and to repeal bylaw number 21-43.
Okay, someone to move. Counselor Purcell, someone to second. Deputy Warden Marks. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item.
Be it a first, second, and third read of bylaw 22-38, being a bylaw to appoint a treasurer and deputy treasurer for the corporation of the County of Elgin, and to repeal bylaw number 21-44.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Counselor Mennel and Counselor Jiguer. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Next item.
Be it a first, second, and third read of bylaw 22-39, being a bylaw to confirm proceedings of the Municipal Council of the Corporation of the County of Elgin at the August 9th, 2022 meeting.
Okay, someone to move, someone to second. Counselor Jones and Counselor Martin. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And our last resolution.
Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 10:52 a.m. to meet again on September 4th, August 23rd, 2022 at 9:00 a.m. Unlikely that we will have a meeting on the 23rd, but we'll keep it in place just in case and provide notice of cancellation should we have an insufficient number of reports to bring forward. So be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 10:52 to meet again on August 23rd, 2022 at 9:00 a.m.
Someone to move, Deputy Warden Marks, seconded by Counselor Ketchapaw. All those in favor? And that's carried. And thank you very much. And I encourage everyone, we're going to be have like